7 times I married the same man. And 7 times, for the sake of his one true love, my husband divorced me. The first time we married, he told me, "For the rest of my life, I will love only you." But whenever she came back to town, his tune would change. Can't you be more understanding? Do you really want Avery to be branded a homewrecker? The first time we divorced, I slit my wrists in a desperate attempt to keep him. They rushed me to the hospital, but he never came. Not once. The third time, I debased myself, applying for a job as his assistant, just for the chance to see him more often. By the 6th time, I had learned to pack my things quietly and move out of our home without a fight. My hysteria, my retreats, my quiet compliance, all of it earned me his punctual remarriages and his predictable betrayals. Until this time. This time, after getting word that his precious Avery was returning, I was the one who handed him the divorce papers. He set a date for our remarriage, just like all the other times, but he didn't know. This time, I was leaving for good. Avery's back. We should get a divorce. I slid the signed papers across the table to my husband, Julian Croft. For a moment, he looked stunned, but he recovered quickly, signing his name with a practiced ease. This was the first time I had initiated it. But he still made the same casual promise he always did. "She'll be gone in a month. We'll get married again then." In the past, those words would have sent me spiraling, desperate for more reassurance. I would have demanded he swear an oath, sign a contract. But this time, I felt nothing. No desire to respond at all. "Gemma, are you listening to me?" Julian's brow furrowed, clearly annoyed by my silence. I had to force a nod. Yes. My hands didn't stop moving, folding clothes and placing them neatly into a suitcase. Julian always kept his word about remarrying me. He was known in his industry for his integrity. That much was certain. It was almost as if we weren't a husband and wife, but two parties in a contract, periodically terminating and renewing our agreement. The marriage and divorce certificates were just paperwork, 2 a year every year. To date, I had signed 12. I remembered on our wedding day, he promised he would never be unfaithful during our marriage. And he had kept that promise. After all, once we were divorced, he was free to be with whomever he wanted. The only cost was my reputation. I was known throughout our social circle as his plaything, a woman he could summon and dismiss at will. My unusual calm today seemed to unnerve him. The memory of my past hysterics, of the times I'd hurt myself, was still vivid in his mind. He watched me pack, faster and more efficiently than ever before, and said, a little defensively, "I can be the one to move out this time." The snap of the suitcase latch closing cut him off. "I've already arranged it with my friend. I'll stay with her for a few days." A flicker of recognition crossed Julian's face, and his expression soured. "Don't tell me you're playing hard to get again. Are you going to sneak into the company disguised as an assistant to watch me? Gemma, can't you get a life? Are you really that incapable of living without a man?" I understood his subtext perfectly. He just didn't want me showing up at his office and disturbing his precious time with Avery. She was only in town for a short while, after all, and he wanted her by his side, in her role as his special assistant. After our second divorce, I had successfully applied for that assistant position. I had walked into his office holding his favorite latte, my heart full of hope. I found him locked in a passionate kiss with Avery, who was sitting on his lap. I lost control and attacked her. Julian slapped me so hard I fell to the floor. A crowd of employees gathered outside the office, gawking at the spectacle. They all thought I was still the CEO's wife, and their gazes on Avery were filled with contempt. To protect Avery's reputation, Julian ignored my tearful pleas, snatched my purse, and dumped its contents onto the floor. The deep red of the divorce certificate was like a gaping mouth, screaming the truth of our relationship to the entire world. From then on, every time we divorced, Julian made sure to announce it publicly. Everyone knew Julian loved Avery. And everyone knew I was the shameless one, clinging to him, refusing to let go. But this time, Julian's fears were unfounded. I picked up my suitcase without hesitation. "Don't worry. I won't bother you again." He eyed me with suspicion, but as I opened the door and stepped out, he called after me, a hint of urgency in his voice. "We're getting remarried on the 13th of next month. Don't you forget." I froze for a second. What a coincidence. The 13th was the day I was leaving the country. With Avery back in town, Julian didn't spare me a single thought. True to his word, he focused entirely on her. And I broke free from my old obsessive patterns. No more tracking his every move, no more trying to intercept him. Instead, I settled into a blissful routine with my best friend, Maya, filled with late-night food runs and cheap beer. Time flew. With only 20 days left before my departure, Maya and I were waiting for our order at a small restaurant when Julian and Avery walked in. He had his arm around her waist, laughter spilling between them, looking like the perfect couple. Gemma? Julian's gaze locked on me immediately. Avery wrapped her arms around his neck, her smile painfully sweet. Gemma, what a coincidence. You're here for dinner too? Julian instinctively stepped in front of her, shielding her. I knew he assumed I'd lash out, just like before. But I didn't. Not only did I stay still, I held back Maya, who was ready to confront them on my behalf. I managed a casual smile. Yeah, what a coincidence. Avery's grin widened, sensing my restraint. So sorry, Gemma, but Julian promised to book the whole restaurant for me tonight. I guess you'll have to find somewhere else. She tugged on his arm, her tone dripping with sweetness. Isn't that right, Julian? You have to say something, or Gemma will think I'm being mean on purpose. For a brief moment, Julian's eyes met mine, hesitation flickering. But then he nodded and stayed silent. That silence cut deeper than any insult. Maya rolled her sleeves up, ready for a fight, but I pressed her arm gently. It's fine. We can go somewhere else. Somewhere else. Somewhere without Julian. My departure was so close, and I wasn't wasting energy on pointless confrontations. As a proper ex, shouldn't I act as though he no longer existed? The restaurant manager rushed over to fawn over the couple. You two are so lovely together. Truly enviable. Julian glanced at me, a mix of curiosity and caution in his eyes. He seemed to wait for a reaction. But I simply took Maya's hand and walked away, pretending I hadn't heard a thing. Julian stared at my retreating back, caught off guard by my calm. Avery had to call his name several times before he finally tore his eyes away, reluctantly. I thought that encounter would be my last before leaving. But that evening, when I officially resigned from my assistant position, Julian sent a video call request. It was so unexpected I almost declined, but curiosity got the better of me, and I answered audio only. Why audio only? He asked, his tone laced with irritation. I'm not wearing any makeup, I replied, the excuse tasting hollow. It sounded like I still cared about how he saw me. He chuckled. We've been married long enough. Is there any version of you I haven't seen? His flirtation made my skin crawl. What do you want? I asked coldly. He noticed the shift, straightening up. HR told me you resigned. I did, I said, offering no explanation. Silence stretched between us. He tried a joke, but it fell flat. It's probably for the best. You had a perfect life as CEO's wife and chose to become an assistant instead. Not that you were in the office much anyway. And I still had to pay you every month. Everyone knew you were there, because of me. They said I was playing favorites. I cut him off, patience thinning. Don't you need to be with Avery? He muttered. It's not like there's anything serious between us. Then fell silent, as if remembering I was just his ex-wife too. About the divorce. I'm sorry, he said quietly. I stayed calm, letting the moment pass. Avery shouldn't suffer gossip. That burden was mine alone. My voice turned icy. If there's nothing else, I'm hanging up. Wait, he called, urgency in his tone. The 12th is our anniversary. There's a concert, The Remnants. I know you want to go. I'll take you. We'll go together, okay? For a fleeting moment, I considered telling him the truth. But before I could speak, Avery's voice drifted from his end. Julian, honey, I forgot my towel. Can you bring it? He didn't answer immediately, just stared at my name on the screen, torn. Go on, I said, voice flat. He slowly got up, leaving the call open. Gemma, wait for me. I'll be right back. I heard the unmistakable sounds, the kiss, Julian's muffled grunt, and the bathroom door slamming. I hung up, a bitter smile on my lips. At that moment, Maya burst in, excited about a night out at a club. I put the phone down and linked arms with her. There was a whole world waiting to make me happy. I had been blind for so long. Why waste another moment on a man who was already part of my past? The days without Julian blurred together. Before I realized it, my departure was only a few days away. I hadn't seen him, but Maya filled me in. Apparently, he and Avery had a huge fight. He even stormed out of a gala, leaving her humiliated. Rumor had it the argument was about me. I couldn't help but laugh. I wasn't that desperate, love-struck girl anymore. constantly refreshing social media, obsessing over every hint of trouble in their relationship, ready to swoop in and proclaim my love. It was just a lover's quarrel. They would reconcile. And if it involved me, I was always just a piece in their twisted little game. After their fight, Julian's calls increased. I either ignored them or made excuses to avoid him. The day before my departure, he called again. I have tickets. Let's meet tonight. It's our anniversary. You can't say no today, can you? He had never pleaded with me like this before. Usually, he'd toss out a suggestion, take a single step forward, and I'd rush the remaining 99 steps, only to find he had stepped back for Avery. I paused. Today wasn't our wedding anniversary. It was the anniversary of our 4th remarriage. After all the breakups and makeups, I was the only one who remembered the details. Yet I agreed. I wanted to see the remnants. That night, I waited outside the concert hall. Julian never appeared. I listened to his voice message instead. His guilt, the muffled concert sounds, and Avery's faint laughter in the background filled my ears. I'm so sorry, Gemma. Avery suddenly felt sick. I had to take her to the hospital. We'll have plenty more anniversaries to celebrate. Once she leaves tomorrow, I'll do whatever you want, okay? A haunting melody from the concert drifted into the night. I closed the message and, for the first time in weeks, checked social media. The first post I saw was Avery's, a selfie of her and Julian at the concert. I'm letting go of all my memories to make room for your new love story. But I still can't believe this is my destiny. The music became a mocking soundtrack to the tiny spark of hope I'd foolishly allowed myself. That spark was now gone. 7 divorces. I should have known better. But at least this time it was over. No lingering feelings remained. I turned and went to the airport, sitting there all night. By 7 a.m., I checked in. Julian texted, asking about our next remarriage. I didn't reply, just deleted his contact. At 8 a.m., I stood in the boarding line. He called. I didn't answer. Blocked. By 9 a.m., the plane lifted off. When the flight attendant asked everyone to switch to airplane mode, a call came through, Maya's. But when I answered, it wasn't her voice. Panic laced Julian's words. Gemma, where are you? Julian's voice cracked with panic through the phone. I stared at the screen for a long moment, my heart steady, my mind clear. The plane was already taxiing, and the moment I had been waiting for, freedom, was finally here. I didn't answer. Instead, I pressed the button to end the call, watching as his name disappeared from my screen. For the first time in years, I felt no pull, no hesitation. Only a quiet thrill of relief and anticipation. This was it. No Julian, no Avery, no old patterns. Just me, and the life I was about to claim for myself. The city welcomed me with soft morning light, streets alive with possibility. I dragged my suitcase up the steps of a modest rented apartment, a place that wasn't luxurious or perfect, but it was mine. Mine to fill, mine to shape, mine to live in on my own terms. For the first time in years, I felt excitement instead of dread. No Julian, no Avery, no repeating patterns, just me, untethered and free. I let the thought sink in. I was finally leaving behind the chaos that had defined my life for far too long. I set my suitcase down and opened the window. The hum of the city below felt like a heartbeat, steady and insistent, calling me forward. I could almost hear it whispering, "This is your story now. Make it count." My phone buzzed. Maya had texted, "New city, new you. Don't forget me when you're famous and fabulous." I smiled, tapping out a reply. Not a chance. But seriously, this time, I'm actually going to live. Later that afternoon, I wandered the streets, taking in the sights. Boutique shops spilled their wares onto cobblestone sidewalks, cafes beckoned with the scent of fresh pastries, and street musicians filled the air with melodies that tugged at something long buried in my chest. I stopped at a small cafe, needing a break from lugging my suitcase. As I stepped inside, the warmth hit me first, the smell of roasted coffee beans, the chatter of patrons, the soft hum of life continuing without care for the past. "New here?" a voice asked. I looked up. A man in his late 20s, tall and sharply dressed, but with a kind warmth in his eyes, smiled at me. Something about him seemed familiar, though I couldn't place why. "Yes," I admitted. "Just moved in." "I'm Leo," he said, offering a hand. "And if you're feeling overwhelmed, that's normal. This city tends to eat newcomers alive before they even realize it." I laughed. "Good to know." I like being eaten alive by coffee and pastries, though. Much safer. He grinned. I like your spirit. Tell you what, first coffee is on me. Consider it a welcome gift. We talked for hours, or at least it felt like hours. He asked about my work, my travels, and life in general, never prying but gently nudging me to share. Somehow, I found myself laughing, teasing, even opening up about things I hadn't told Maya or anyone in months. You're stronger than most people give you credit for, Leo said at one point, leaning back in his chair. His eyes held a spark of mischief. Don't let ghosts from the past pull you back. You've got this. I nodded, feeling warmth spread through me that had nothing to do with his coffee. Maybe it was hope. Maybe it was just the comfort of being treated like a human, not a pawn in someone else's story. Back in my apartment that evening, I pulled out a journal I'd bought months ago, but never dared to use. The first page lay blank, tempting me. I inhaled its crisp scent and began writing. I am not defined by him. I am not defined by Julian. I am allowed to be more than the woman he abandoned over and over. This city is mine, and so am I. The scratch of my pen against paper was oddly satisfying. For the first time in years, my thoughts weren't clouded by obsession or grief. They were clear, intentional, and mine. A knock on the door startled me. My heart jumped, but it wasn't fear. It was curiosity. I heard you just moved in, a cheerful voice called. I opened the door to a woman holding a cat in one arm and a tote bag in the other. Welcome to the building. I'm your neighbor, Selena. Coffee? Wine? Or chaos? I laughed, feeling a genuine sense of belonging I hadn't felt in years. Coffee and maybe a little chaos. She stepped in, setting the cat down on the couch, and we spent the next hour swapping stories about the building, the city, and the quirks of living alone. I realized how much I'd missed human connection that didn't revolve around Julian or drama. Later that night, as I sat by the window, journal open, I let the city lights wash over me. Somewhere below, life continued, messy, unpredictable, and beautiful. And now so did mine. For the first time, I felt like I wasn't running from something. I was running towards something. And maybe, just maybe, there were new stories waiting for me here, stories I got to write myself. The first few days in the new city passed like a pleasant blur. I explored streets I'd never walked, sipped coffee in cafes that smelled of baked bread and possibility, and allowed myself to breathe without the weight of Julian's constant presence. Then my phone buzzed. One message. Gemma, please. Just answer. I froze. For the briefest second, a tiny flicker of old fear and longing sparked inside me. Then I crushed it. I didn't reply. Not now, not ever, not for him. The messages didn't stop. Another one came 30 minutes later. Gemma, I know you hate me. But this isn't over. I can't let it be over. I set the phone down and walked to the balcony, letting the cool evening air wash over me. I didn't need him. I didn't want him. And yet, why did my heart still beat faster at the sight of his name? I spent the day with Leo, laughing and trading stories over coffee, and for a few hours, Julian was nothing more than a ghost at the edge of my thoughts. But that night, when I returned to my apartment, the phone buzzed again, a video call this time. I hesitated, thumb hovering over the decline button. Curiosity won. I answered, audio only. Gemma, please just listen. Julian's voice was raw, almost pleading. Julian, you're late, I said flatly. And persistent. I don't care about being late. We need to talk. I laughed softly, bitterly. Talk. You talked enough for a lifetime. I don't think I want more. I know I've hurt you. I know I've ruined everything. But I can't stop thinking about us, about you. Please, just hear me out. I swallowed the old ache in my chest. It was familiar and poisonous. Julian, stop. I'm not your chess piece anymore. You can't manipulate me with words. There was silence, heavy and almost painful. Then a soft, almost mocking laugh came through the speaker. I never realized how stubborn you could be, even now. I survived 7 divorces. Do you really think a few months away will break me? I shot back, my voice icy but controlled. He sighed. You're impossible, Gemma. Impossible and irresistible. How do you do this? How do you stay so calm when I know I've shaken you? I closed my eyes, breathing deeply. I refused to fall into his trap. You don't get to see that. You don't get to use me anymore. Avery's not the only one who walks away. I do, too. The line went silent again, and I imagined the tension on his face. That old, unspoken understanding between us, the one that always had him anticipating my next move, was gone. Just as I hung up, my apartment door clicked open. I jumped, only to find Selena, my neighbor, grinning at me. "Everything okay?" she asked, holding a tray of tea. I laughed lightly, shaking my head. "Better than okay. It's just ghosts from the past. I'm learning to ignore them." Selena's eyes sparkled knowingly. "Good. Ghosts are overrated. But if they keep showing up, you have to make sure they leave for good." I nodded. Exactly, I thought. No more manipulation. No more Julian. The next evening, a familiar but unexpected voice rang through the lobby of my favorite restaurant. "Gemma?" I turned. There he was, Julian, in person this time, arm wrapped around Avery. The sight didn't make my stomach twist like it used to. I felt nothing. "Julian," I said softly, controlling my tone. "I don't know why you're here. And frankly, I don't care." Avery smiled, that sickly sweet grin of hers. "Oh, Gemma, we didn't expect to run into you. Isn't life funny?" I forced a polite smile, holding Maya back as she would have lunged forward. "It's coincidence. Nothing more." Julian's eyes flicked to mine, searching, questioning, almost pleading. But I held my ground, calm and untouchable. "Gemma," Julian said finally, voice low, "can we talk just for a moment?" I shook my head, gently but firmly. "No, Julian. Whatever you were planning, whatever you hoped, it ends here. I'm done with your games." They left, Avery chattering, Julian silent, but I noticed the flicker of frustration, or maybe admiration, in his eyes. And I smiled to myself. For the first time in years, I felt victorious. I wasn't a pawn. I wasn't a ghost. I was free. But even as I poured a glass of wine later that night, I knew this wasn't over. Julian never gave up easily. And I had to be ready to defend my independence, ready to live my life on my own terms, and ready to face whatever came next without fear. The morning air smelled like rain and fresh beginnings. I had spent the night thinking about Julian, about Avery, about the life I had just fled. And yet I didn't feel the panic I expected. Instead, a quiet determination settled in my chest. I decided to take a walk through a part of the city I hadn't explored yet. Narrow streets, cobblestone sidewalks, and cafes tucked into corners, places that promised new stories, new faces. It was in one of those cafes that I met her. She was seated at a small table by the window, a stack of books beside her and a laptop open. There was a calm authority about her, the kind that drew your attention without demanding it. "Mind if I join you?" I asked, noticing all other tables were full. She looked up, eyes sharp but kind. "Only if you can handle the truth," she said, half smiling. I laughed, intrigued. "I think I can." She gestured to the chair across from her. "I'm Eleanor. And you are?" "Gemma," I replied, sliding into the seat. We spoke for hours. Eleanor listened more than she talked, and when she did speak, it was measured and full of insight. "You've been hurt," she said quietly, like she was reading my thoughts. "Not just hurt, trapped. Controlled. Manipulated. You're not weak, Gemma. You've survived more than most people ever would." I nodded, unsure if I wanted her to see the cracks I still felt inside. It's hard to believe that after everything, I can even trust myself. "That's exactly why you need to," Eleanor replied. "You can't control him. Only yourself. That's where your real power begins." Her words cut through me, sharp and cleansing. For years, I had let Julian's whims define me, dictate my choices. But she was right. The only thing I could ever control was me. And what if he keeps trying? I asked cautiously, the old fear creeping in. Eleanor smiled knowingly. "He will. But every time you refuse to play, every time you take a step away, you win. Not over him, but over yourself. That's victory. The rest, well, it's just noise." I left the cafe, with her words echoing in my mind. For the first time in months, I felt equipped, not just emotionally, but mentally. I could face Julian, or anyone who tried to pull me back, without losing myself. Back at my apartment, I dug through old news articles and social media posts, curious about the world Julian left behind. What I found was unsettling. His manipulations had left ripples. Employees whispered about favoritism, business partners complained about mismanaged deals, and gossip about his personal life tainted reputations beyond mine. It was a revelation. Julian wasn't just a personal problem. He was a storm leaving chaos in every place he touched. And that was when I realized, if I wanted peace, I couldn't just walk away. I had to build something strong enough to resist him. Later that evening, I sat at my small dining table with my laptop open, a notebook beside me. I began sketching a plan. Not for revenge, not for confrontation, but for independence, security, and dignity. A life built entirely on my own terms. The phone buzzed. Julian's name flashed on the screen. I stared at it for a long moment before locking the phone. No. Not now. Not ever. I smiled to myself. For the first time in years, I felt the thrill of control, the power of choice. And I knew Eleanor was right. I couldn't control him, but I could control me. And that was enough. The city had begun to feel like mine. Each morning, I walked along tree-lined streets, discovering small cafes and bookstores, savoring the freedom of making choices that were entirely my own. Evenings were spent at art galleries or quiet bars with Maya, laughing until my cheeks hurt and my chest felt lighter than it had in years. Yet, despite the distance, Julian's shadow lingered. Occasionally, his messages appeared on my phone, fleeting, apologetic, sometimes arrogant, but always stirring something I wasn't ready to admit. A twinge of anger, a flash of old longing, a reminder of the control he once held over me. One evening, as I was sketching ideas for my fledgling consulting project, the cafe door chimed. A tall man stepped in, dark hair falling just above keen gray eyes. He scanned the room, and his gaze landed on me. "You Gemma?" he asked, with a subtle smile that carried curiosity and mischief. "Yes," I replied, setting my pen down. "I'm Adrian," he said, extending a hand. "I heard you're good at turning chaos into opportunity. Thought I might pick your brain." Something about him, his confidence, his intelligence, the faint challenge in his eyes, made my pulse quicken. Not like Julian's manipulative pull, but a steady, thrilling spark of interest. We spoke for hours. Adrian asked questions that made me think, forced me to defend my ideas, and teased me when I faltered. He didn't try to charm me, not directly. Yet there was tension, subtle and electric. By the end of the evening, I felt alive in a way I hadn't in years. As I walked home, phone in hand, a new message appeared. "Julian. Gemma, I can't stop thinking about you. Can we meet?" I froze, then laughed bitterly. He hadn't changed. Still entitled, still assuming I'd drop everything for him. My fingers hovered over the keyboard. Instead of replying, I blocked the message. The next day, Adrian texted me, asking if I could meet to discuss an upcoming project. I agreed, ignoring Julian's attempts to infiltrate my thoughts. Yet, when Julian finally appeared unexpectedly at a gallery opening I attended with Maya, my pulse betrayed me. He approached with that practiced charm, his gaze searching for cracks, for hesitation. "Gemma," he said softly, leaning just a little too close. "You think you're free, but you think you still have a hold on me, but you don't." "Not anymore," I interrupted, my voice steady, eyes locked on his. "I'm done being manipulated." His lips twitched, as if fighting a smile. "You've changed. I underestimated you." "And don't forget it," I shot back, stepping past him toward Adrian, who had just arrived, looking at me with concern and something more, protectiveness, maybe even jealousy. Julian's eyes flicked between us, a flicker of surprise, or was it irritation? Crossing his face. Adrian, unaware of their history, simply raised an eyebrow and said, "Everything okay?" "Yes," I said, exhaling. "Better than okay. I've realized my life isn't about you anymore, Julian. Not yours. Not Avery's. Mine." And for the first time in years, I felt entirely untouchable. The gala was grander than I expected. Chandeliers sparkled like stars, and every table was adorned with white orchids and crystal glasses. I had arrived with Adrian, who looked calm and protective, his hand brushing mine in quiet reassurance. Julian was there, of course, flanked by Avery. Their smiles were bright, polished, perfect for the cameras. But something in Julian's eyes suggested unease, like he was waiting for me to stumble, to falter, to show weakness. I didn't. As we circulated through the crowd, exchanging polite nods and small talk, I noticed subtle glances directed my way. Whispers. Curious, envious, even reverent looks. I had expected to feel fear. Instead, I felt untouchable, composed, unshakable. Then it happened. Avery approached me, her smile forced, sweet in the wrong way. Gemma, darling, she said, voice smooth, almost syrupy. We didn't expect to see you here. I let her words wash over me. Polite but cold. Neither did I, Avery. I hope you're enjoying the gala. Julian stepped closer, his jaw tight. Gemma, can we talk? I shook my head. Not here. Not now. Avery leaned in, lowering her voice. You don't know what's coming. Julian, he's not the man you think he is. I raised an eyebrow, intrigued despite myself. Go on. A sly smirk crossed her face. He married you for more than love, Gemma. There are things he gains every time he brings you back. Reputation, alliances, influence. You weren't the only one playing a game. And honestly, I've been manipulating him too. The words struck like ice. Avery, the perfect assistant, the golden girl, had her own secret agenda. For a moment, I glimpsed the truth behind Julian's repeated marriages. I had been a pawn, yes, but he wasn't the only one maneuvering pieces on this board. You? I asked, voice steady despite the shock. She nodded, her eyes glinting. And now? Well, you're the only one who can stop both of us if you play smart. I didn't flinch. Not outwardly. I smiled politely, the mask of calm firmly in place. Play smart, I reminded myself. Julian's voice came from behind me, tense. Gemma, what did she tell you? I turned slowly, meeting his gaze without a hint of fear. Everything I need to know. The room seemed to pause, as if sensing the confrontation. Whispers multiplied. Eyes darted between Julian and me. Avery's lips pressed into a thin line. I suppose, I continued, voice rising just enough for all nearby to hear, that there are more truths in a single glance than in all the contracts and promises we ever signed. Gasps rippled through the crowd. Julian's confident composure faltered. Avery's smile disappeared. I had taken control, not through anger, not through pleading, but through calm, precise awareness. Adrian's hand found mine again, and I felt a quiet strength in his presence. Together, we walked toward the exit, leaving Julian and Avery to the whispers of their own unraveling. As we stepped outside into the crisp night air, I allowed myself a small smile. The game had changed, and this time, I wasn't a pawn. I was a player, fully aware, fully in control, and ready for whatever would come next. The morning sunlight streamed through my apartment window, warm and steady, a reminder that life continued even after storms. I sipped coffee and stared at the city below, marveling at how quiet it felt compared to the chaos I had left behind. Adrian joined me shortly after, his presence calm and grounding. You look different, he said, a small smile tugging at his lips. More at ease. I am, I replied, setting down my cup. It's finally my life. Not Julian's. Not Avery's. Mine. He nodded, understanding more than words could convey. You've earned this, Gemma. Every step away from them was a step toward yourself. The day brought an unexpected invitation, a charity gala. Julian would be there, of course, expecting to see me falter. But this time, I wasn't the girl who waited for his approval or validation. I was poised, radiant, and in control. As we entered the ballroom, Julian's gaze found me immediately. I held his stare, unflinching, letting him see what he had lost. Avery lingered at his side, her confident smile faltering slightly as she realized I wasn't intimidated. Later, in a private corner, Julian approached. Gemma, please. Can we talk? I met his eyes calmly. Julian, we don't have anything left to discuss. I'm done being manipulated, done being your shadow. Your hold on me ended the moment I chose myself over you. His lips pressed into a tight line, frustration and disbelief warring in his expression. You don't understand. I understand perfectly, I interrupted. I understand that you never loved me the way I deserved. That you and Avery were never about us. They were about you, about control. And I won't be a part of that anymore. He faltered, searching my gaze for a hint of weakness. There was none. I had grown stronger, sharper, untouchable in ways he could never anticipate. Adrian stepped beside me, his hand brushing mine in quiet solidarity. Gemma doesn't need saving, he said softly, his eyes locked on mine. She's already her own hero. In that moment, a weight lifted from my shoulders. Julian's power over me dissolved entirely, leaving him to retreat into the shadows of his own arrogance. Avery's attempt at superiority faltered as whispers spread across the ballroom. Everyone could see who truly held her dignity. Later that night, Adrian and I walked along the quiet streets, the city alive with lights and possibilities. "You don't owe anyone an explanation," he said gently. "Especially not them." I looked up at the stars, feeling the truth of my journey settle deep in my chest. I used to believe he was my world. Now I know the world is mine. Adrian smiled, squeezing my hand, "And I'm honored to share a part of it with you." For the first time in years, I believed it. Free from Julian, unbound by his games, I had reclaimed my life. The road ahead was uncertain, but it was mine to walk, with people I chose by my side, and with a heart strong enough to embrace every possibility. The night air was crisp, full of new beginnings, and I stepped forward, finally unafraid, finally triumphant. The city skyline stretched out before me as I stepped off the train, the hum of traffic and distant chatter blending into a new kind of freedom. For the first time, I felt like I truly belonged somewhere. Not as Julian Croft's ex-wife, not as the girl who had once waited for scraps of his attention, but as Gemma, on my own terms. The consulting firm that had offered me the project was sleek, ambitious, and intimidating, but in the best way. I was here to lead a team, a role I'd never imagined for myself, one that required brains, strategy, and authority. And for the first time in years, I felt ready. "Gemma," a cheerful voice called as I navigated the lobby. I turned to see a young assistant waving, her eyes wide with admiration. "We're so excited to have you. The team has been preparing for your arrival." I smiled politely, taking the elevator up to the office floor. The glass doors opened into a bright, bustling room filled with people typing, discussing, and brainstorming. The energy was intoxicating. I could feel my pulse quicken, not from anxiety, but from the thrill of possibility. Then, unexpectedly, I froze. Julian. He was standing across the room, papers in hand, talking to a client. I could tell he hadn't expected to see me here. His eyes flicked toward me, a flash of shock quickly masked by professional composure. I met his gaze steadily, a quiet confidence radiating from every movement. He approached later, his steps measured, trying to appear casual. "Gemma," he said, voice even, though a tremor of surprise lingered. "I didn't expect this. To see you here, leading the project." I held his gaze, letting the silence stretch. "You're witnessing it now," I said coolly. "I didn't need your approval, Julian. This is my work, my choices, my success." He tried to offer a tight-lipped smile. "You're impressive." I tilted my head slightly, as if humoring him. "I know." The meeting began, and Julian stayed on the sidelines, his usual aura of control absent. I spoke clearly, presented my strategy with precision, and navigated questions with ease. My team responded with enthusiasm, and for the first time, I saw genuine respect in the room. Not pity, not assumptions based on my past, but real recognition of my talent. Afterward, as I packed my notes, Julian lingered. "I underestimated you," he admitted quietly, almost as if speaking to himself. I zipped my bag, turned to face him fully, and said, "That's something you'll just have to live with." For the first time, I didn't need him to understand me or even like me. I had carved out my own space in the world, and in that space, I was untouchable. As I walked toward the elevator, Adrian's text buzzed in. "Proud of you. Can't wait to celebrate later." The envelope was thick, heavy, and gilded, almost like it had been sent to intimidate rather than invite. I tore it open carefully. Inside, the card read, "Julian Croft and Avery Whitmore. Wedding ceremony." I laughed softly, a sound that startled even me. Not this time. Not ever again. The gala hall shimmered with chandeliers and laughter, guests mingling in designer gowns and tailored suits. I walked in with Adrian, every step deliberate, confident. My heels clicked against a marble floor like a countdown, my countdown, not Julian's. Julian's gaze found me immediately, a flash of disbelief in his eyes. "Gemma," he called, attempting calm. "Please, can we talk before this starts?" I stopped, turning slowly to face him. My posture was perfect, my expression neutral. "Julian, there's nothing left to discuss. This is your life, Avery's life, and the story you both chose. Enjoy it." He faltered for a moment, searching for a crack, any sign that I might give in. There was none. Avery, standing nearby in a dazzling gown, glanced at me with a mixture of surprise and disdain. I smiled faintly, a small, knowing curve of my lips. She had always underestimated me. She had always thought I would crumble. Julian tried again, voice softer, almost pleading. "Gemma, after everything, can't we?" "I am done being your shadow, Julian," I interrupted, my tone steady, slicing through the room's murmur. I am done being a pawn in your games. I am my own person, and I will not be manipulated again. He stepped closer, but I held my ground. Look at me, I said quietly but firmly. I am not the same woman you married 7 times. I am not waiting for you. I am not yours. And I will not be part of this charade. The guests began to notice the tension, whispers trailing in our wake. Julian's face tightened with frustration, Avery's forced smile faltering as they realized the extent of my composure. Adrian gently took my hand, a silent anchor. She doesn't need saving, he said, low enough for only Julian to hear. She's already her own hero. I held Julian's gaze one last time before turning away. Every step I took radiated independence, every movement a declaration. My life was mine. He could have his wedding, his grand gestures, his illusions of control, but I would not be a part of it. Outside, the night air was crisp and liberating. I exhaled, feeling the weight of years lift from my shoulders. Julian's world continued inside the gala, but I was already steps ahead, living a life I had chosen for myself. No vows. No manipulations. No reminders of the past. This wedding would happen without me, and for the first time, I didn't care. I looked at Adrian, a smile finally reaching my eyes. Shall we go? He nodded, and together we walked into the night, leaving Julian, Avery, and all their pomp behind. The city lights reflected off the river, shimmering like a promise I hadn't dared to make to myself in years. I walked beside Adrian, the cool evening air brushing against my face. His hand brushed mine, tentative, careful, but intentional. A gentle warmth spread through me that had nothing to do with Julian, nothing to do with anyone but me. You know, Adrian said softly, glancing at me with a playful smile, I think you've finally figured out how untouchable you are. I laughed, the sound light and free. It took me 7 divorces and countless nights of tears to figure it out. I admit it. But yes, finally, I get to choose my own story. He stopped walking, turning to face me. And in this story, I get to be a part of it. I raised an eyebrow, teasing but serious. You'll have to earn your place. No shortcuts, no illusions. Just honesty. Just us. He nodded, a genuine smile breaking across his face.
Deal.
For the first time, I realized what love could feel like when it wasn't a game, a manipulation, or a test of endurance. This wasn't about possession. It wasn't about control. It was about choice, respect, and trust. And for the first time, I wanted it, not because I needed validation, but because I deserved happiness. We wandered through the quiet streets, laughing at small things. A shared joke, a silly stumble over uneven pavement, a passing street performer. Each moment felt effortless, yet profound. I wasn't afraid to enjoy it, wasn't afraid to let myself feel again. Do you ever miss it? Adrian asked suddenly, his voice softer, tinged with curiosity. Miss what? I asked, though I already knew.
The past.
Julian. The chaos. I shook my head slowly.
No.
I don't miss being someone else's second choice. I don't miss losing myself. That life, that man, it's all behind me. I'm living my life now. On my terms. He reached out, brushing a strand of hair from my face. And I'm glad I get to see it, to be part of the person you've become. A small smile tugged at my lips. You'll see more than that, I said softly. This is just the beginning. We walked in silence for a moment, hand in hand, each step a quiet declaration. The night felt infinite, full of promise and possibility. And for the first time in my life, I was ready, not waiting for anyone, not chasing anyone, just living fully, freely, and completely as myself.